The big one? Sorry, say again.
Yeah, I think without revealing too much, right?
Okay, okay.
Ethereum is part of our
Yeah,
roadmap, just to say it explicitly, right? It's not something that's been fully announced yet, but if
of
you're
course.
really trying to unify users and liquidity in the whole blockchain space, then Ethereum is also where you want to be going.
No, I agree. You can't. I mean, it's great to focus on a lot of the new things that have been coming out over the past like years, of course. But I think at the end of the day, Ethereum is obviously going nowhere, right? And it will be sort of the top, I believe. So, just personally. And so right now you have the two, and these are being done via IBC. So I'm curious, when it came to this, is IBC the only option for you guys to use for this? What sort of led you guys to that point, and how far along do you feel you are working on this?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, the two big names in interoperability are Polkadot and Cosmos
Hmm.
because they've established messaging protocols within their ecosystems to have different chains connected as long as these chains are within that ecosystem. So in the Polkadot case, that would be parachains that are connected to the relay chains, and then parachains can communicate with the relay chain and with each other trustlessly. But XCM cannot be used outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. And the Cosmos ecosystem, it's kind of a
Oh,
similar
okay.
story. They're not called parachains, they're called app chains or Cosmos chains built with the Cosmos SDK. So there you have trustless interoperability between these chains through IBC, right? But here's the catch. IBC is possible to export it outside of Cosmos. It just hadn't been done up until the point we embarked on this journey. So whereas
Oh, okay.
XCM is a bit more uh, confound within Polkadot, right? And that's when we evaluated these two protocols and realized that one of them is possible. Both of them are trustless. One of them actually can be exported, and that's really when we set
So,
out to take IBC
so
everywhere.
up to that point, nobody had actually ported out IBC at all. It was this. You guys were the first.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay, that's so. Would you say at this point you have many competitors doing what you do, and if so, how do you feel you guys are kind of outside the lines in the space of interoperability?
Yeah, so there are other teams trying to do similar things. Well, when I say similar things, there are other teams trying to export IBC outside of Cosmos and create IBC-based connections outside of Cosmos, namely Ethereum. Um, we have different approaches and methodologies, which I think is actually very healthy because the whole space, we believe that this is a crucial advancement that's going to be required for the space. So it's good to have multiple teams trying, some failing, some succeeding, but essentially going after the same objective. And I think, what differentiates us first and foremost is that we've done it. We have the
Yeah.
first connection up. So I think the proof of concept is there, which we're very happy about. But then beyond that, I think what the other part that differentiates us is the fact that, the end vision we have is not these connection in of themselves. It's rather to usher in the XCVM era. And then, as a reminder, XCVM is our cross-chain virtual machine that essentially is a piece of tooling that can be helpful for multiple players in the ecosystem. So be it like DeFi protocols, stablecoin issuers, market makers, players looking to tap into MEV opportunities. I mean, the idea of it is that you can go in and specify an instruction of what you're trying to do, and that have XCVM under the hood route your instruction across any chain that XCVM is connected to, so that you can perform any function within DeFi across all chains. And that's really what we mean with any money, any chain, anywhere, right? So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. And also I just very quickly want to mention we do have some questions from users live as well, that we can probably go to as well, because this is a very good one, I believe.
Beautiful.
If you can you see the chat as well? Just curious, just want to make sure. On your screen you'll
Let
see like
me. I didn't have it open, but I can see it now.
okay, yeah, we have a couple questions from Alex Cat. I believe you actually just answered his first question. Um, but let's take his second question. How do aggregation-based dApps on the XCVM cross-chain virtual machine differ from traditional aggregation services in the DeFi space?
Yeah, that's a great question actually. So I mean, look, when we talk about aggregation, like Celsius was an aggregation platform back in the day, rest in peace, right? But Celsius was
Yeah.
essentially allowing you to earn yield on any token through the single UX platform, right? But essentially, um, here's the problem: it's not decentralized and it's still custodial, right? So you're
Mhm.
giving your money, custody of your money to Celsius, who will then basically provide through a simple UX yield generating opportunities, right? But we all can see the risk and the downside of this model is that you're not really solving any problem. I mean, they claimed they were banking the unbanked, but yeah, they were sort of as the platform for the unbanked, but they were just another bank that didn't really abide to the true principles of this entire space, right? And what we are trying to do is essentially bring a Celsius, when it comes to aggregation specifically as this particular use case, we'd like to get to a place where you have the same kind of ease of use and the same um, just like intuitive UX, but with an actual decentralized infrastructure where you never forego custody of your funds.
Okay. Okay. And Alex, let us know any feedback if that answers everything. I hope so. Thank you for the great question. If you guys have any other questions as well, please feel free to ask, and we can take a couple live as well as we go towards um, the AMA section here. I have a question for you just from our side. So, in the current space you guys are working in, what you guys are doing with Dot Sama, what does this work that you're achieving right now? Obviously, you guys have put a lot into this. Mean for those in other spaces outside of the current space that you're in? Does this affect them long term? Does this give them benefits? Will this come to them? Will this affect them in any way?
Yeah, absolutely. So So I think the entire crypto space will benefit from having chains interconnected, right? But I think specifically, let's drill down into the ecosystems that we connect to, right? So not to stray too far off, right? Right now we're focused on the Polkadot Cosmos connection. So essentially, what this means is the ability to trustlessly move tokens from or liquidity from one ecosystem to the other, and then be able to open up these two spaces to each other. So if you can imagine further down the line, once you have wallet support for both of these ecosystems, that becomes easier to have through as it sits on top of our infrastructure. For Kusama, for example, which has been a long neglected ecosystem, right? This also means that a lot of the liquidity that's present today in Polkadot can flow into Kusama and then revive some of the activity that's happening there. For Cosmos and Polkadot, it's the same. I think Polkadot these days could, for example, benefit from a stablecoin, right after. So, for example, you could see stable coins that exist in Cosmos, basically being able to support the Polkadot side. I think liquid staking is another interesting example where, beyond just liquid staking, let's say Stride is doing ST Atom. That ST Atom can be used within Cosmos up until this day, but with this connection, then ST Atom can also be used in the Polkadot ecosystem. Another example is also essentially having cross-chain pairs, right? So we're working, there's also a bit of alpha. So we're working with Osmosis to introduce the first trustless IBC token pair, and this will be a Pika Osmo, right? So Pika from
Very cool.
Picasso or chain, and then Osmosis listed on, be it on their DEX, on our DEX Pablo. So soon enough, you can over time start to see a sex experience also replicated in DeFi, because these ecosystems have that trustless connection between them.
So basically, at the core, if you want to look at it a simple way, it's kind of just long term. The effects would be sort of the puzzle pieces coming together for, what one may be missing, another can bring to sort of put everybody up, I guess. Just for those listening. And yeah, I agree. I think that bridging everything. Everybody has pluses, everybody has minuses, and giving that opportunity for, like you mentioned, like a stable coin to Polkadot, I think would be great long term. Yeah, that's awesome. And so my next question for you to go into today, I wanted to ask a bit about sort of different products, services that you guys have. Would you be able to go over Pablo Dex for us?
Sure. Uh, so Pablo is a DEX. Pablo lives on Picasso, our chain on Kusama. Pablo is also the place where you can access and trade Pika at the moment. But in the future, also Pablo will be one of the premier DEXs that support cross-chain listing of tokens, right? So I mentioned sort of the Osmo Pika pair as one example, but I think along this line, as we connect to more ecosystems, Pablo is probably the place where you could go to be exchanging the canonical tokens of different ecosystems that are connected through Composable or over IBC. Yeah, and that's where you'd go for these listings. So I think that's one side of the equation, and I think another is with the whole cross-chain narrative, MEV or maximum extractable value is going to be a big narrative moving forward, right? So I think you basically there you sort of, as if you want to benefit from MEV opportunities, then you want to be connected to the DEXs on different ends of the connection that you're establishing. So DEX, Pablo is also going to be a big piece into shaping that narrative.
No, I agree. And so that's interesting. And I think we have a question in the chat as well. Or maybe let's see. Oh, we have a lot of questions actually. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. What role does Pablo, Composable's protocol, play in facilitating cross-chain token swaps? I believe you kind of covered that
Yeah.
already. No worries, Alex. Alex actually asked that as you answered it. So glad to see that done. Okay, let's dive into another piece I know you guys have. Let's cover Centauri since we just went over Pablo. Would you be able to go over Centauri for everybody listening?
Sure. So Centauri is the name that we are using for all of our IBC activity outside of Cosmos. So Centauri is the all-encompassing brand that covers the Kusama to Polkadot connection that I spoke about. So that bridge between Kusama and Polkadot is called Centauri. Once the Cosmos Polkadot connection goes live, and just to be very specific, this would be a connection between Picasso, our chain on Kusama, and then various Cosmos chains. So this bridge that connects Picasso to, say, Osmosis, to Stride, to the Cosmos hub itself, that's also called Centauri. And also in the future, as we go to Near, the bridge between Picasso and Near will be called Centauri, right? So Centauri is essentially the name of all of our work to bring IBC outside of Cosmos and to hopefully every ecosystem out there.
Wow, that's great. You guys have big plans long term here. This is very exciting.
Yes, sir. I see a question here that keeps popping up about the regular. So I see Metagaming is a regular follower of Composable, but there's
Yeah.
no blog coming right out now. So we're actually really active on Twitter and Medium. We talk about any publication that we put out on Medium, on Twitter as well. I think a few of the accounts you might want to follow is Composable's main Twitter account. There's also the Picasso account. Feel free to also follow me. I sometimes share updates about Composable. But yeah, like we're quite active socially, I would say. Part of that is this community engagement campaign with Galxe, which we're really pumped about. So thanks again, guys. But yeah, I think that's a great place to start getting some Composable news.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well. If you wanted to talk about any existing Galaxy campaigns or community initiatives you guys have going on, like what's the best way? Yeah, good bridge. What's the best way for somebody to get involved with Composable as from a user side?
Yeah, I think, look, one of the best ways is go to Pablo, exchange some tokens, buy some Pika if you like, or swap your existing Polkadot or Kusama based tokens on Pablo. I think test out Centauri, send us any feedback you have on our Discord. Centauri right now can enable trustless transfer between Polkadot and Kusama, but very soon that will extend to Cosmos as well. So just play around with it. Let us know what you think. I think that would be very grateful. But beyond that, I think we're constantly also as part of this launch kind of thinking about new campaigns to engage our community. So which would include giveaways and just still shaping up. But I think essentially like having the community on board, testing, trying, providing feedback, and talking about how big of a milestone this is as well is something that we'd really appreciate. And then we'll also make sure to set aside some rewards to show our appreciation.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. The feedback you guys can provide is huge just to those listening. If you guys are, just hearing about this now for the first time, Ilya dropped the links in the chat as well for you guys to check out. So feel free to visit the Discord, provide some feedback, comment on Twitter, and also give Weebix a follow as well. For sure, guys. That's awesome. We have a couple more things in the chat here. Picasso crowd loan was a major success. Any plan to launch it again? Maybe they mean more so future crowd loans. I'm not sure you would do another one for Picasso again, but as well as another user here is curious about the Composable Finance grant program and if that will be launching again.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So from a crowd loan perspective, so Picasso crowd loans are out. Layer are not yet. We're gearing up for the launch of the composable parachain on Polkadot later in the year, and that's where crowd loan rewards for Layer will be released. But in terms of future crowd loan plans, I don't think that's within our roadmap because we already have our parachain secured for now. But I see a great question. I think that's the one you're referring to from Alex Cat saying, what are the eligibility criteria for Cosmosm projects looking to receive grants and protocol incentives? Great question. There's one part we haven't covered yet in our tech stack, and that is our Cosmosm VM. For those that don't know, so Cosmosm is a smart contracting framework that's used, again, up until this day, only within Cosmos. Basically, as I mentioned, Centauri enables the trustless movement of tokens, but then the VM on top, which is XCVM, will allow then for the orchestration of different functionalities, right? So the earliest version of the XCVM is the composable Cosmosm VM. So just to abstract this a little bit, what this means is that protocols that are deployed elsewhere, namely Cosmos. So let's say a certain protocol is using Cosmosm as its smart contracting framework, and it's building on Osmosis, on Juno, on Injective. or even as its a standalone app chain, will now, through our Cosmos VM, be able to deploy an instance on Picasso, and through basically by simply copy pasting their contracts, their existing contracts. So this means that if you're a Cosmosm project that's already deployed in Cosmos today, you can, with the same existing contracts that you've written, leverage our Cosmosm VM to create a new instance or outposts and tap into the whole .sama space, right? And tap into the liquidity that exists there and the whole user base that exists there, which is really a very attractive value proposition given the size of the Polkadot ecosystem and given how easy it is to deploy through this VM now. So you can be building on Picasso with relative ease and simplicity, right? I think that's that's what you can do today. But when the Centauri connection is up, that also means your two outposts or instances can be connected. So you'll be on both ecosystems, but you can trustlessly move across these two outposts. And then once XCVM is fully realized, as the VM progresses, then you can also be orchestrating functions basically between your different outposts.
And currently, you mentioned when the Centauri connection is up, and I don't. We've covered a lot. Did you mention if you have a date or time or sort of a time frame for when we will see that?
Yeah, sorry. I think I also missed maybe the a big an important part of the question. So I think I was being asked about the grant side. So yes, in an
Yeah.
effort to attract and onboard like robust applications with onto Picasso, because as I said, the way we think of what we're building is an ecosystem, and we want to grow that ecosystem, which means we don't want to create all the DeFi primitives and products that live in this ecosystem ourselves. We want to have builders come in and adopt this technology. So from that perspective, we do have a grants program. I think the focus of this grants program right now is the Cosmosm VM grants track. So that means that if you're a Cosmosm dev or project deployed elsewhere and you're interested in deploying on Picasso through our Cosmosm VM, knowing how easy this process is, we're still happy to support you, uh, be it with grants to support any development effort for the team itself, or incentives for users of this particular protocol. So that's live. If you want to apply, go to composable .finance and then go to build, and then you can see a grants program there. So you can choose the XCVM track, highlight that you're a Cosmosm project, and then we'll basically get your application and get that going.
Amazing. Make sure you guys check that out for any of the builders listening. We're gonna take one last question. And feel free, Weebix, to choose the question if you'd like, if you're looking at the chat right now. We had a couple about Pika token. I believe that want to be asked by Shmoik here. Is the Pika token utilized across all these ecosystem connections, i.e., value of all connections goes to Pika holders, or will there be one token per connection?
Yeah, beautiful question. So at the moment, it's all Pika. However, as the composable parachain is fully launched and the layer token goes through its token generation event, both Pika and layer will be powering these connections. So to illustrate this a little bit, on the Cosmos side, and again, this is some alpha here, but I feel comfortable sharing. Essentially, so one of the key pieces that facilitate this connection is a Cosmos chain that will be a hub chain between Picasso and various
Very cool.
Cosmos chains, right? So that chain will not have its own native token. That chain will be powered by Pika. When layer launches, that chain will be powered by both Pika and layer. So making sure that our existing community, our token holders, our crowd loan participants are really accruing the value of all of these growth efforts.
That's amazing, and I appreciate the alpha that you've provided to the listeners today. They always love to hear something new. So That's very exciting, and you guys have a lot coming. So, what can we expect to see as we go through? I guess the second half of this year. That'll sort of be my last thing to ask you for today. What can we expect to see for end of the year? What are some of the goals coming for the rest of the year? And is there anything that you wanted to just finally mention for everybody listening?
Yes, sir. I think you have a way of extracting some good alpha, and I feel like I'm falling for it, but I'll take it. Um, so look, I think this next half of the year is probably, I'm hoping it will be the most exciting time
Mhm.
since the launch of Composable. From where we are today, we spent a lot of time in the basement just um, testing whether our vision and trying out and establishing the fact that our vision is one possible, and two is getting the proof of concept of connecting two different chains over IBC outside of Cosmos up and running. And this is where we are from where I sit today, right? And now that we know it's possible, we're going to more and more ecosystems. We're inching very close to Polkadot Cosmos. That's something you can expect to see in the coming month or so. So that's a pretty big milestone. As I mentioned, more ecosystems are in the pipeline. So I would say getting to one or two more ecosystems by end of year will put us in a quite a solid place. And I think, you know, it's time to give some love to XCVM as well, now that we have the first few connections that it can leverage, and start to see applications kind of also evolving, not just being built on our Cosmos VM, but adding functionality to that so that we can, turn our VM into an XCVM v0 and start to do functionality beyond token transfers.
No, that's huge, and that's very exciting. And I think that I definitely agree that we're gonna get there for sure. Together, hopefully, as you guys will be using Galaxy throughout these remaining months. And yeah, no, I I do try to extract alpha when I can. It's just some leading questions. Um, no, and I appreciate you coming on today. This is the so we'll close out the AMA section here. I just want to thank you for coming on. You are a wonderful explanative guest, so which is what we love to have. So because it helps get the point across, and people can learn, which is a big part of why we do this weekly. So I just want to say thank you for coming on. Very excited to see what's coming from Composable going forward. I do really believe that the connecting between the different chains, networks, etc., like whole nine yards, is what will lead us to the next onboarding of 1 billion, right? So thank you for that. And guys, show some love, follow all the links. Ilya, please share those again. Oh, he actually beat me to it. Thank you. And yeah, just any final words, and then feel free to head out.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to meet the community, to answer questions. I think it's beautiful also that we're expanding beyond just our own community and Discord, which
Mhm.
have been, which I truly value, because I think anytime we've jumped on an AMA, I think the level of engagement and feedback has been really, really cool. So I think it's good to see some new faces to basically talk about Composable to more and more people. Grateful for your questions, grateful for Galaxy also for setting this up, and yeah, really happy to continue connecting and jump on more of these spaces as we go.
Of course, looking forward to seeing it. Thank you again, and I'm not sure exactly where you are in the world, but have a good morning, afternoon, or night for sure. Thank you very much.